Welcome, guys. Thank you guys for being here. I'm always super humbled to see the people that do show up. I'm always grateful for the friendships and like looking always so forward to the conversation. So my intention with some of like what we've kind of talked about in this last couple of weeks, I realized that I get super excited and I just ask too many questions at once because I'm still very much like the kid in the candy shop that just asks why all the time until the mom just kind of kicks him in the mouth. So I wanted to kind of start this call with a quote, and I may or may not kind of butcher it, but the quote that I want to talk about is, in couples, I don't necessarily think that we always grow at the same time. And we found this quote that goes, don't commit to me, commit to your own expansion, and I'll commit to mine, and we'll meet each other there. So the first question that I have is, as conscious couples or as couples that are focused on growth, how do you commit to your own expansion while being there to hold space and support each other in each other's expansion? And how does that joint expansion kind of happen? So whoever wants it first.
Don't be shy.
Well, it's a really perfect quote for Harry and I, because in our business, we help people with their true north statement, and that's where you're going and where you're headed. And we each have one as individuals, and then we have one as a couple. And so our priority in this life for ourselves and each other is to reach our most whole spiritual path and live in that space. And so we promise to each other, like, I'm not going to let him give up on his spiritual path. And so our promise to each other is different. It's not about the relationship. It's about supporting each other in our individual true north. And so when we are going through things, it's very much, what is your goal? Where are you going? And how can I support you in that? And we're teammates in getting to that place, rather than, just being about the team and not about where the team is going.
I think I'll just add on to that real quick to finish off our bit. Along the way, too, what often happens is, maybe, and this can be in any relationship, not just a romantic relationship, but we see people that are in holes sometimes. They either dig themselves into a hole, or they fall into a hole, or they need to go in that hole for whatever reason. And can the other person let them be in that hole and stand on the side and support them in going through what they're going through, but not climb into it with them and become a part of digging it deeper, perhaps, or whatever might come from getting lost in someone else's work. Yeah. And so can I allow them to be where they need to be without getting lost myself?
Well, and that's really what it is about. It's about like that piece of, I can allow you to feel what it is that you need to feel, and I don't have to fix it, right? Like I don't have to correct it. And I think that what we're coming out of in this old paradigm is a lot of that is like, I need you to help me feel different. And I hear this a lot in language with people I coach, is like, I need her to help me feel this way. And I'm like, actually, it's your job to help you feel this way. And, that kind of leads us into the next part, which is essentially, we are all in this journey of wholeness. And, when one person's whole and you meet another person and they're in wholeness, then you get together in love and you're both in wholeness, and you create this other dynamic. And for so long, people have been a half. And they're still kind of breaking out of those things. And, a lot of women, and it's not all women, but a lot of women have leaned in on men for support, and it can be vice versa, financial support, other support. And that paradigm is kind of shifting right now. And then, men in other ways, I watch a lot of men who haven't done as much stuff around the house or done the other things. And like, so those really are shifting. So how do we look at that now? And how are your roles changing? And how are you being more whole in yourself and holding that space for yourself, as opposed to asking your partner to do it?
I think with what we just talked about, it's like, rather than thinking of, you helping me feel a different way. It's like, what do you know where you're going? What is your true north? And then are you stuck or are you moving towards it? As long as you're moving towards it, be a mess, be all together, whatever you need. I'm here to support you. Just don't get stuck. I'm helping you keep moving. And like for me, sometimes that comes in. I like Harry, I was gone and I was like, it would really help if you just did all my laundry for me. Because I just needed that to be off my plate. And he's like, okay, cool. I can do all your laundry for you. Just tell me what needs to be hung. And so I think it's not what.
Smart man, that's a good question. If you've never done any laundry, you don't understand that question. But the shit that needs to be hung is completely different than the shit that is a slippery slope, man. Like if you don't ask that question, you're fucking shit for no reason. For what you think is no reason, right? I'm like, oh, fucking no, it's just a shirt.
But it is. It's in the question. You know, what do you need, or how can I help get something off your plate, rather than like I can do this part. Just asking and being willing to do whatever you're capable of helping with.
Good stuff. It's a good point. What else is coming up? Anything else coming up for anybody else?
I was waiting for Eric to come back because I had something that came up for me. Okay. Am I off mute?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Hi, I'm Allie. I think I know everybody here. Yeah, and this is my husband, Eric.
Hello.
He's new to things.
Hi, Eric.
So actually what came up for me in that, what you guys were saying is that when you're asking and offering to be something for someone, or to give them structure, to be like, what can I do around what's going on for you, so that like you don't fall in it with them, like offering to do something for them or offering to hold space. And then the biggest piece that I think I'm trying to learn and step into is then like doing what I say I'm going to do. So it's like kind of two parts. It's offering to be there and asking in what way you can offer support, and then making sure that you follow through on it, and doing what you say you're going to do. I think that's a really important piece too. That's what came up for me.
I love that, because then or at least what I feel with that is, because then your partner grows the confidence in you and in your word, right? I think what we're very corrupted in as a society, we hold a great value to the word we give to other people, and we have so discounted the word to ourselves. And as partners, fuck, all I want is for you to say and do what you say you're gonna do. Because all I know is what you tell me, right? So if this is important to you, that's all I want for you. But then if it's not important for you, how do I know? Like what? That's what you told me, you know?
Absolutely.
I think what you just said is key, because a lot of people just don't know what's important to them. They haven't done that piece, and they can't articulate it. And a lot of times if you do articulate it, you need to know how your partner speaks. You need to know how it helps them. Like, for example, so I asked Sarah to do the laundry for me, and I hadn't heard anything. So I didn't know if he did. I didn't know if he hadn't. And Harry's like, well, yeah, I'm going to surprise her because I did it all, but I'm not going to tell her that. Where I'm thinking, you didn't do it, you know? And so like, what is your communication style with each other? Like when I'm in a bad place, I just want facts. And he, you know, we have to kind of meet each other in the middle on how we communicate, and have that knowing what you're saying and having the active listening to hear it. Because he's the best. Sometimes I just can't hear it.
Well, right, and that's that piece. Like we get to a point in our own evolution where we can't do our work alone, and like that's the beauty of conscious relationship, and that's the beauty of partnership, is that then we need someone to reflect back the things on ourselves that really only you can share with a person that you're deeply intimate with. Right? That's when you see you're in you mirror. So what are some really, you know, this conversation is really to teach people and to show people that we can have really deep conversations in groups together, and we can talk about important things and people aren't so alone. So I want to know, like, you know, what are some of those like key pieces where like you keep reflecting at each other some heavy stuff, and how do you move through that? Maybe what is one of the topics that's really heavy that is something that you kind of have to reflect at each other? And anybody on this call can answer too, because we've all been in relationship or
You know, it's a juicy topic
it is.
when the couples just kind of look at each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. For me, it's that in partnership, I am super strong and a lot of fire, and sometimes a really, really big asshole. And like when I am set my mind on something, like, and you know, E's my partner in business, but it's like we're married, right? Like when my mind is set on something, I am so sure and driven about it that it's almost like at a weird level. And to have a partner that can show up and can be like, hey, like you really need to check yourself right now, because maybe what you're doing isn't right. And I've yet to find really a partner that can do that, who is not afraid of me, who is like, can challenge that part of me, right? And that I respect when someone says, hey, like, are you sure that's really the way it should be done? And like, I'm like, I'm gonna listen to that. But very few people do that for me. So that's a big topic in my life that's been in my partnerships.
Well, we went to the beach today. Harry's like, okay, I'm going to tell you what I think. You're not going to like it. One or two of the things. I'm like, I'm probably not going to like all of it, but I genuinely value you and respect your opinion, and I want to hear it. And I think people often know what they want to say. Like, I might not be afraid of telling you, but then it's, you know, we've got to do the work to be willing to actually hear the other person out.
And learn how to say it, right? Like in a way that's not super like criticizing or very harsh, like doing it in a loving way. Like that's the secret, right?
And that takes time.
That takes a lot of time.
Communication style. Yeah, that's a process.
Yeah.
But you also gotta say it, because if you don't practice,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's always gonna be awkward. And like to me, it's always the same thing. You know what I mean? Like even if I know every time Tasha and I have had difficult conversation, it's always been not necessarily easier, but not as catastrophic as my imagination had it painted. But it's still, man, you find yourself leading into this conversation, you're just taking it wide, and you're just like, so, you know, and you're just like leading up to it, and it's just it's very difficult, right?
That would drive me nuts.
Yeah.
No.
But what I
are you
said
trying
the
to
other
say?
day, but what I said the other day is it's not something that like I'm ashamed by or embarrassed by, and I don't want to hide it. I want to be in my truth. And what's important to me is for me to be in my truth. Because then if I'm not in my truth, that I'm living this life that is so complicated, and it's all like this self-inflicted complications.
Yeah.
Instead, I should just be able to just express it.
And we set the stage for these kind of conversations. If we show up and be like bringing that energy into it, that like this conversation is going to be controversial, it's going to be, you know, we're going to confront each other, it's going to be that, you're going to bring that into it. But if you say like, hey, there's something that's been on my mind, are you open to having a conversation? That piece of giving the other person a choice of saying yes or no and honoring that decision and being like, okay, I totally understand you don't want to talk about it right now, but can we find another time to talk about it? So, you know, it's like, it's being respectful. Not everybody's ready to have those conversations all the time.
I think what E said and where this really comes in for most couples, I think, is we'll have the wide conversation. We kind of beat around the bush. Sometimes like we just got to rip the Band-Aid off and have the real talk. And the reason a lot of couples don't, in my experience, is because that real talk ends up being, if we have this conversation, we might need to consider if we stay together or not. And because I'm afraid of touching that, I'm going to stay in this wider sphere instead of just cutting right through the middle and saying what I need to say. I'm going to feel you out. You're going to feel me out. We're going to edge towards it, but we're not going to quite touch it because we might end our relationship. And we've talked about ending our relationship several times. And that also at the end shows us I'm choosing to be here, not because I'm afraid of not being here, but because I'm willing to have that rough talk. I think that's where people stop a lot because it gets very real.
Without fail, we always walk out of those conversations far stronger than ever before.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the secret right there, because a lot of the people that I coach will come and they'll be like, but if I'm totally honest with him, he's not going to want to be with me. I'm like, right, but like that's the truth, and like that's what
Yeah.
everybody deserves, right? And like your actions are not in a place then, or his actions are not in a place of being in truth. So it's like you're not living in truth in the love, right? So it's just this dancing around what is real and then facing it. And a lot of women or men, it's stability, it's security, it's safety. It's scary when you think the potential of being alone again.
And you don't know that, right? It's like E said, a lot of times you build it up. They're gonna be so upset if I'm really honest about this. And you tell them and they're like, okay, so what should we do about that? And they have a completely different reaction than you build up in your head.
Yeah. And it's that unknown of like how they're going to react, I think, that prevents us from being vulnerable. But feeling that, and I've been in a space where I was like truly scared to like tell Eric a couple of things, and I didn't trust that he was gonna love me on the other side of it. And like until we started building up that trust between us, I think I was scared to be fully me and to live in my truth and be okay with him loving all of that, because I was like, oh, no one's gonna love all this shit. I got a lot of stuff down in there, and I was like really scared of allowing him to see it for fear that he wouldn't love me.
But if you love it, typically then someone else will love it too, right? But it's that fear of us not loving that parts of ourselves, that acceptance.
Yeah, and that's important too. And I don't even think I loved those parts either. So it was like fear that I didn't love myself, so I wasn't even giving him a chance to, like at certain parts of me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To me, what that brings up, it's always like the deepest, darkest thing that we don't want to share is the one that you have most in common with the most amount of people, and like the moment you tell tell your wife or you tell your husband, like, there was a really hot guy at the gym. Like I realized that I still check out men or women at the gym, and she looks at you, it's like, yeah, me too. You're just like, oh shit. The common thing, like if this happens to you too, like it's not just me, like I'm not just some kind of sicko that like still does it. She's like, no, it happens. You know what I mean? And it also feels good, right? Like the same way it feels good for us when you like get checked out by somebody and you just like feels good for your wife. I'm like, okay, so like what's wrong about that, bro? Right? And you just get that feeling, just like, yeah, you know what I mean? And what's wrong about it? Like the only thing that is wrong about it is the fact that it somehow breaks up this idea of like how we do relationships and like how we do it. Yeah, the reality is that marriages don't work now less than ever. People cheat all the time.
Mm-hmm.
People have open marriages. People have affairs. So it's the truth of what's happening, yet we need to stay within this box of like relationships. And we just hang out there. And yet there is so much like greenery and freedom and just yard for you to go out and play and just have fun all together, just outside of that box.
It's so easy to fall into that sort of box though, in that like routine and comfortability that you have with yourself and your partner, that like it's so easy to gloss over things that like that are vulnerable and that are like actually real and like true in yourself and like true in your relationship, that like you don't often come to a place where you're talking about it because it's just easier and more comfortable to just go through the routine and not talk about it. But when you do that, you're putting a lower ceiling on what your relationship could be and what you yourself could be, that if you were just like way more open and more comfortable in your own vulnerability, that like it would just be so much better for everyone,
Well, and like understanding like relationship before was like, let's build a relationship on trust, right? Like if you do the things in this box of trust, we can be in a relationship together and I'm going to trust you. But if you start doing other things outside of that box, I'm not going to trust you. But like really now it's more about showing up in truth. Every day I commit you can trust that every day I'm going to commit to showing up in truth. And that may be hard. That may be, hey, I'm having feelings for somebody, or hey, this thing is happening for me. And it really isn't necessarily about taking necessarily action on that piece. Sometimes it's just simply being able to talk to your partner and be vulnerable and be like, I'm having these feelings. This is my experience right now. Let's talk about it. Let's talk through it. You know, so that piece is very interesting. We had a guy, I was hoping they were going to be on the show tonight, but they're moving right now, on one of our last calls, or the first call, B-Star. And he was talking about, like, for their relationship, he likes to flirt. And if he can't flirt with other people, like, that's really hard for him. Like, that's that piece where relationship commitment had never worked for him. And he likes to flirt. He's a big flirt. And it's important to him to be able to have that part of his life, and his partner is completely fine with it. They have, you know, rules and guidelines for it. But where in your life do you guys find that maybe you deviate from the norm and things that you need that you guys have kind of agreed to? Or maybe the things that you want that you haven't told your partner yet.
I want more hair, you know.
Here you go, babe. We're not unconventional sexually or within like the confines of our usness. As far as going outside, I think one of the things that's been different for us is we're more like, I'm gonna go for 20 days and go do this thing. I need you to get out of the house. Kind of more in our alone time. We've been talking about what a year of silence and like celibacy would look like, what it would look like if he went and did his monk thing in a cave for a year. So I think ours is more on the how it would look like to be in a relationship when you're not in the same space.
That to me is like, yeah, it's some powerful shit. And I know I limited myself in wanting to have those experiences for the same reason, right? I'm just like, kind of like, I would love to go and do like a 10-day, like go for a dieta, or like go to like Vipassana for 10 days. And then I'm just like, how would I do that? Like, how would I leave? And not just like this extends farther out than like your relationship, but like, how do I leave my like job and my business and everything else? And they're all just chains in all different shapes and forms that kind of hold you down to just have to experience this reality the way you have it.
Yeah.
Right? Because like, if you're like, okay, I can go away for 10 days and my wife won't feel abandoned, and I'll grow and I'll expand and I'll commit to my expansion and come back a better partner. Why is that wrong?
Yeah.
But I have that in the back of my mind, and I have a super open and available partner that like would listen to me and it's always encouraged me to like go after whatever. Yeah, I still feel these boundaries, self-inflicted, maybe, but they feel real. Harry, I don't want you to go away for a year in a cave. But, I don't want to
I
not
told
talk
them,
to
I
you.
said, you can't go away for a year. E will miss you.
Yeah,
Don't
like,
worry
what
about
am I
me.
gonna do? Do they have Zoom in the cave? Is there a Zoom? No? Okay. No?
He can like sign to you.
I mean, and it happens for us in little ways too. Like sometimes he'll just say like, hey, I need the house to myself for a weekend. Can you go see a friend? And vice versa. I'll just say, I just need to be alone. And we just respect that.
Yeah, she's like, go to the library for the day. Do your work there. I'm like,
Yeah.
I love that.
People are afraid to tell their partner that they need them to not be there. Or and especially like so many of us in this community, you work from home or you and your partner work together. It's really important, I think, to have that distance so that you do maintain that sense of self and your own personal journey. Because sometimes you just need to disentangle from what's ours.
So how do you tell, so here's the thing. So how do you tell a partner that you have this like dark shadow, this part of you, this Evan, I'm kind of like coming in for you on this question.
Yeah, I unmuted. I don't know if you guys can hear me or not.
Yeah.
Okay. I unmuted because I'm warming up to this whole deal, and I came in late, technical difficulties, and I was arguing with my wife about Zoom, and she's a master, and I have no idea about it. So yeah, this is all like very new to me, but I will open my soul to you guys because honestly, I have nothing to lose. So let the darkness come on out. Let's see it. How do you tell? And I also feel like I'm somewhat different than obviously you guys who are not married, and that's something that is near and dear to me, and I love my wife dearly, and it is a challenge being married, and it is. I took that commitment very seriously, and I know she did as well. So, barring, I mean, I've told her too that. The biggest fears would be, losing her and losing my kids. That's like what could like literally drive me to tears. But I also know deep down, and I've told her this, that I would be okay. Like that's as fucking scary as that is. Like I will transcend that somehow, some way, and I would expect the same of her. So yeah, that's pretty crazy to say that, but also looking at that and not letting that drive your decisions and have it so fearful that I can't let my kids go play and do like kid things or let my wife go on vacation or do things like that. And this is also coming from a place, I don't know if some of you I've never seen before or met, but a place where I've already totally broken that trust for my wife. And I was unfaithful to her in our marriage. And I was unfaithful prior to the marriage to myself. I was doing a lot of self-destructive behavior, and it continued into our marriage. So how do you tell someone? Well, you kind of have a spiritual moment, spiritual awakening. And that's kind of what happened when I came clean. I knew it was like literally a fork in the road, and I was kind of, I would say, walking through hell. I mean, I've been to hell a few times now, where you're just self-loathing and despair and just total feeling of unworthiness that you feel will never end. And then you have to look yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, this is the moment where I decide to be honest, and with the knowledge that I could lose everything, my wife and kids. So. It's a powerful transition when you do that. And if you're being genuine and you really do care to change and to work on yourself and make yourself feel worthy, then they can see that and sense that, and they want to give you another chance potentially, or not. I mean, I don't know everyone's circumstances, but I know that my wife has been very gracious about the situation. Her family has totally been gracious of the situation, and this is a couple of years ago. So yeah, it was earth shattering. Kind of rebuild that foundation. How do you move on from there? You just continue to build trust and have faith that that it will work out. And I'm also a human though too, and that's the thing is. It's those conversations do get brought up, and it is another wound that you have to kind of work through. But it's also being honest and being open to her and letting her know how and where I sit on things. So communication is a big part. And then it's a challenge, but if you love the person and you love yourself and you that's the crazy thing about being brave, right? It's just being honest and being vulnerable, and that's scary as shit sometimes. But when you face that, and if she weren't to take me back, then that wasn't the right person for me, and that's okay. I mean, that's the tango we do. I mean, and she's also taken a ton of responsibility for the actions that I did, because it was a codependent we co-authored it. So I take full responsibility, but she's also accepting some of the responsibility herself, which actually helps me feel a little bit better. But it is, again, like I said, I take full responsibility, but also acknowledging that it does take two to tango. And every situation isn't super clear. So yeah, that's a mouthful right there. The sex thing is still, you know, if you've seen my videos, it's still very much a part of my life. With my wife, she is going through, and she could want to be on this, but she's watching our kids right now. She's going through early menopause. She has chronic illness and has had it for several years, and kind of goes up and down with waves of that. And I've been trying to be as super supportive as I possibly can, acknowledging that I have to do my own work, and that it will piss her off when I lose 20 pounds in 3 weeks, which I just did, because I'm like doing this competition soon, and like I'm very focused on what I'm trying to do, and like I need to take care of myself because I need to keep the boat afloat. And if I just allow myself to drown in that, so that's very hard. It's a balancing act, because she doesn't like to see that sometimes either. As much as she loves me and she's happy for me, it's also a level of, and she'll admit it, that's like, how come it's so easy for you, or why, you know, and it's a human nature. I mean, I want her to be well so effing bad, because I know how much she can just light up. And, you know, so yeah, it's a journey. I mean, chronic illness and going through the steps and kind of being the example of it too, just trying to take responsibility for myself and my actions and my behavior and my body, everything I do, you know, and until you take responsibility, you know, it's no one else's fault, any situation. It's your own personal journey and your own responsibility. And I truly believe that.
I agree. Yeah, I very much agree. I think that, like, especially with the sex piece and how men and women go through different varying times, and, you know, when we flare up sexually is a very different experience. And as we're evolving and expanding, that sexual piece is coming in and out for different things as we're experiencing and entering new parts of ourselves. So let's kind of like steer it over a little bit to something that might be interesting for people. And maybe you guys don't have questions, and I might embarrass you. I can see, I know like at least 2 of you are going to turn pink, but like sexually, what's happening as you're expanding consciously? Like, what's happening in your connection? What's happening? Like, what gifts are you accessing? What ways are you able to communicate without normal communication? Like, what's exciting for people that are in the more conscious realm sexually? What's happening? I want to know. Inquiring minds want to know.
I'll start it out since I was just talking.
Okay, perfect.
But just real quickly, I mean, because I've kind of gone through a couple spiritual evolutions and kind of different. I mean, the time where I came clean with my wife, shortly thereafter, it was like the best sex we've ever had. And it was kind of like this like release of like what I thought she wanted, or what I thought she didn't want, or what I was kind of assuming that things were too far or not too far. And then we started communicating about it, and it opened up the doors to a deeper sexual intimacy. Yeah, so that was, and then recently, again, it's just, you know, communicating the sexual desire or need, the feeling that I have, but then also like recognizing that the place that she's at isn't where that's totally easy to reciprocate. And she's, you know, because of her, you know, the illness and stuff like that, but also acknowledging that, that it's okay that I feel that way, that I'm insanely in love with her and I find her so insanely attractive. But that doesn't get through to her. So but I have to accept that too. So, yeah.
It's amazing what truth can do with intimacy, right?
And freedom.
Yeah.
Right? It's that freedom in that moment, right? Renee, if I remember last time we spoke, you do a lot of work with with couples. Or you've done a lot of work in one of your many lives. And that's an always evolving kind of conversation, right? This open relationship realm, and this, you know, like having these hall passes and so on and so forth. So I would be really curious to see what your kind of perspective on this freedom through expansion and through conversation is.
Mhm. Well, thank you. I'm going to start off by saying that for me, it's an energetic. So whether it's a gift or a liability in the moment, I'm able to like tap in, and I hear what the person's saying. I hear what they're not saying. I hear what's behind the scenes. I hear the ancestral program. I'm like a megaplex or a multiplex. So that's lovely if you can get the sense that the question you ask is perhaps what people call shadow is the part of you that you've made secret and hidden that is your greatest treasure, but you would rather die than one, embrace it, face it, or share it. So how do you finesse someone into exploring that without exposing them and making it unsafe for them to be in relationship with anyone or anything? And because I didn't have training, I'd say it was a trial and error. And there was a lot of questioning around, is this okay? You know, and what is it that's going to be okay when they're literally no longer in the known? The greatest capacity that I've watched is being able to just say, what if it's not Evel Knievel jumping the Grand Canyon? You know, are you willing to like step outside of your known? What will it cost you?
I so love explore versus expose. I'm writing it down right now. I love that.
Thank you.
There's such a big difference.
But it's such a truth, right? Is what Evan was saying, right? Like, how often do you know you can swim, yet you let yourself drown just because the other person, you have this idea that that's what the other person needs. And what way is that of like honoring your life, right? Like what way is that of honoring your truth? What way is that to show up for your kids and your family and your ancestors, right? Like how you know you can swim. Maybe you even know that you're not even like in like deep waters, you're in shallow water, but like the person is freaking out and they're drowning. Drown with me.
Recently, I think I've discovered that there's avatars we choose. I look at it like a video game, and there's like avatars that we go to. And if you can identify the avatar, like for me, allowing someone to drown is really hard. I have my own stuff, and I'm not in a relationship with another human being. I'm still in relationship with the whole cosmos, which is kind of an intensity. And so far, I haven't met a man that's interested in that as a capacity. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I am saying that the exploration has to include someone else's willingness to stop drowning because they identified that with love. There's a lot of misinformation around love, and I actually can't use that word. I pull that out of the exploration.
The word love?
It's a four-lettered word, yeah. I pull it out. Notice what happens as I just said that. Could you feel the reverberations on the page? On the Zoom?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So if love, having worked with really high-level abuse myself and with others, if abuse gets coded to love, then love will always carry some level of giving up yourself. If I pull love out and replace it with aloha, caring, kindness, all of a sudden there's space for other avatars to show up. Now that's just me and my broad field perception. And other people get really great results doing more traditional, conventional approaches. It's just, The people I tend to hang with, when you say expanded, well, we don't, to me, it doesn't apply anymore. Why would we do that? That's like torturing yourself. In a way, maybe that's the old way that we learn conditioned love. But when people say unconditional, there's a lot of spiritual entrainment in that one. Conditional love, unconditional love. Okay, we're doing this. I sense that there's 1,000 shades between those two experiences. What are they? And what if that's where the shame gets locked in? It has for me. And then and then it's just like, wow, I can't be anything between these two experiences because I'm either conventional or unconventional. I'm conditional, I'm unconditional. And I have a pretty good fuck that shit. I have an avatar that goes, fuck that shit. And I can walk away. Doesn't mean that I've completed the circuit. I'm going to repeat it. I'm going to, right where that fuck that shit moment is, I'm going to pick that piece up again and replay it.
And discover all the hues of it, right?
Yes, the hues, exactly. Yeah.
That's all it is, right?
Yep.
I mean, in this duality of this relationship with this masculine and feminine, that is this always changing and evolving rainbow of colors and just experiences.
Yeah.
Right. And it's what Evan also said at the beginning, right? It's like, as hard as it is, I think back of like all my previous relationships, right? All my young love relationships, they were just like, this is going to destroy me. Look at you now, But yet with age, there's this like perceived exchange that the older you are, the more like permanent things are going to be. And it's not necessarily true,
Well, and then I think the older I get, the more I let go. The more I let go, and the more, and my journey's really been about becoming all the things that I had really been programmed since very small to want from someone else, is to become those things myself, right? And like to lean in on me that way and to love myself that way. And, I say this all the time, but one of the hardest things I ever had to understand and accept was that like this love that I had really been like needing in my whole life was only the love I had inside of me. And that I had denied that to myself the whole time. And like the day I realized it, I was just like, oh my God, like I literally have just been denying that very thing that I wanted because, I was too lazy, or I was too needy, or I was too much in the idea of it looking away. So it's so fascinating when we can hold those pieces for ourselves. And, the word love is very testing right now because there's so much in it. And yeah, I have a lot of friends who've changed a lot of the ways that they express love to each other. But it's, I see you as a really beautiful thing. And when someone really truly sees you, like right now for me, like that's one of the most profound things someone could say. I really see you. I really see you. And that's, but gosh, I don't, I promised I wouldn't bring that up. Sorry to do that, but I have to. I have a friend who shares a lot of really great content. And like, I promised him I wouldn't share that. So, okay. So we want to be respectful of everyone's time. We have about 10 minutes left. We can always go over, but we definitely want to be respectful. But so what's coming up for you? Carrie, you haven't said a lot. I know your journey has really been interesting. I'm going to pick on you.
Yeah. You're going to pull me in. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was married for 17 years with the same person, and it was not a good relationship. Very codependent, very didn't know who I was type of thing. So did everything for everybody else. Didn't even know what I like to eat, let alone what I would want in bed. Or I just went with the flow. Did what made everybody happy. And then got a divorce. Didn't date for a long time. And had one little short stint and then nothing for 10 years. And so I just a couple years ago, or a year and a half ago, I dated someone for a little while. And it was really interesting because I had done a lot of work and I didn't realize how much. And I was kind of like with Rhonda, I had kind of changed that dynamic, and I started learning about myself and really coming into things that I wanted and things that I know make me feel good, and really loving myself. And so even though this relationship was not a good relationship in the big picture, it was a great relationship for me, this last little one, because I really tried to stay grounded and be in me. And I spoke up every time I saw it, even if it was like the day later or whatever. I'd be like, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, yesterday, this is what I needed. And it was really interesting because the guy I was with, there was nothing there. You know, he just didn't get it. He didn't see me. And when it all came down to the end, and I mean, I like freaking jumped out there, like in bed going, no, that's not okay for me. This is what I want. And still I wouldn't get what I wanted. And it's like, damn, I waited this long and I'm still not getting what I want. But it was interesting because when it finally came to a head and I just said, okay, this is enough. The whole thing was, you know, I was like, what do you want? Because this isn't what I want. And he was just like, I want you. You make me happy. And it was so like in my face. And I'm like, holy shit, I lived that for like 16, 17 years and beyond that, before that, but just in my marriage. And I'm like, that is so freaking unfair to make someone else responsible for your shit and your happiness and your whatever. If you can't, you need to be happy in yourself. And I actually told him this, but it was so preaching to my choir that I had actually learned that. And so, yeah, so it was really interesting, but it was a great growing piece. But yeah, I'm really strong. I'm really independent. So I'm with Rhonda. I'm sticking with myself and just, you know, gonna roll with it until I find somebody that really sees me and wants to be on that path. And it's gonna have to be somebody who's expanded, like people in this group, because yeah, screw that shit about me being responsible for someone else's happiness. And I am very attentive for other people, and I always have been, but to a fault. Now I'm much better about, which of course I'm still learning, but much better about like looking at my piece and looking at their piece, and going back and forth to make sure there's some balance there. But there has to be that piece there. It can't be, you know, my responsibility to make somebody else happy. And I don't want to be dragging someone up the chains. I mean, I know when I get in a relationship, it'll go up and it'll go down because we won't grow exactly at the same. But I want to be able to meet somebody there and be that witness. Like you guys were saying that, you know, to be a witness and to help them, you know, and look at them in the hole and say, dude, I got your back. If you need something, let me know. I'm here to support you. So yeah, so that's where I am. Single, but happy.
Single and powerful.
Thank you.
That's what always comes through to me. Like every time I hear you talk, you know, like your power, it just oozes out of you. So it's awesome.
I think it scares the shit out of people.
Yeah, but that's fair. Even that, right? Even that, like I am blessed with so many very powerful women, and I know that it is difficult for you. But I also understand that it's more difficult for a woman, because I know a lot of men that think they're powerful men, but they're not expanded men, right? So they're powerful in their doing and what they've accomplished, but they're okay being with a lesser woman because they don't want that competition, that friction, right? And then I see very powerful women that want that for their partner, want that unity, want that mutual thing. And it's difficult because a lot of men are still just, I want to use the term fuck boys, but like, I don't know if that's appropriate, but that's kind of what's coming through to me right now, you know?
What came to my head.
Right? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I work with college freshmen though, so
yeah, exactly. But that's the thing, right? Like that's the thing. You know what I mean? Like that's a lot. Even men, they're very accomplished. They're just, that's what they want, and they want that easy relationship and they want that basic superficial thing. But that's what the divorce rate is, what, 50%, 60%, whatever it is. And people cheat, and then people think because they're not going for what feels good, nurturing to the spirit.
I would like to add to that too. Just, I think that like you said, people are afraid of that. But I also think people are very afraid to look at themselves and be responsible, and to go through hard work. Because marriage is, I can assure you, if you've never been married, not easy.
Well,
And
that's
then
fucking hard.
it could be very, very difficult if it's the wrong person. I can only imagine. But even with the right person, it's insanely difficult. So, with that being said, there's a lot of people that don't want to look inside and take responsibility for their own actions and be honest about the situation. And I would say that leads a lot of people to bailing out, because it's real easy to point the finger and say it's their fault. That's why I'm out. But that also goes, every situation is unique, but when you have two people that are willing to take responsibility, then you could really kind of grow, because they both are being honest about what they're putting into it. So.
Yeah, I call it the relationship barometer. Like I know where I am and how I'm doing, whether it's in this relationship or, when you're dating and you're going through different partners. It teaches you a lot about where you are. And I think, like, Renee, thank you for everything you shared. There's a lot in there, especially like the sex side, having PTSD, like what that means for us, taking some of the personal side out, so that, if I get triggered by him or something, it's not him, it's my process that he's kind of just there for. And it is a barometer. And I think that conscious couple side is being able to recognize you within the relationship and what that's saying for you. And one of the biggest things I've learned is, at the very least, like with Rhonda, if I have the capacity to care for him and love him and support him and want great things for him, if I have that capacity, then I have that capacity to feel that way about myself too. And it always reminds me of where I could be with my own self.
Jonathan, I didn't know if how your cell service was going.
Okay, bye guys. Love you.
Bye, Carrie. Love you. Thank you.
Bye, Carrie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jonathan, do you have anything you want to share?
No, it's kind of
you bring the other spectrum, right? Like you're what, 20?
23.
I'm 23. Yeah.
So it's a whole different spectrum. So we have the married, the
Single,
23-year-olds,
yeah.
the everything.
It's interesting for me in the fact that most of the conversation was based around relationships, and I've been single for quite some time now. Because I have been working on myself, and I realized that I wasn't, like what you were talking about, I wasn't open to just taking the easy relationship. I don't want that. I don't want something that is easy to comprehend and easy to manage, I guess, because I have such I don't want to call them expectations, because I'm okay with not reaching them, but I hold a high standard for myself, and so holding a high standard for the other person that I choose to be with is a really touchy spot, because a lot of people are not on a path of taking care of themselves, and if they are, that's something that almost has to happen independently. And so for me personally, it's really hard to find anybody to be in a relationship with, just because there's so much work to do for everyone here. I don't know, it's definitely in my scope to be with a partner, but it feels really hard to focus on that. It's like, I don't know, it's way out there. It's a huge, huge responsibility to take care of another being in a way, and I don't mean like take care of them physically. I mean care for a being. I really liked what Renee had to say about relationships, like being in a relationship with all things. I feel like I have so many romantic relationships with nature, like a romanticized relationship with the wind. It's just like a huge relief to be able to find relation in almost all things. A human thing would be a beautiful thing to get in a relationship with, but the complexities there are exponential. And I think with that's the idea of becoming expanded within oneself. Because then you might have the ability to understand somebody else's complexities. And I think that's what love is understanding the complexities of another being.
Mm.
Yeah.
You have such a beautiful little mind.
Thank you.
Alien mind.
I just want to piggyback off what you said. I think there's a real power in like what you're saying, like at your age, like you're not just jumping into a surface relationship with someone because that's what you do. Like you're focusing on yourself, and there's like and like you're connecting with nature and you're connecting with the outside world. Like there's a huge power in that, in like understanding yourself more deeply, because it's so often that we just jump into surface relationships with people as we're growing to like find ourselves in that. But like when you find yourself in taking time for yourself, like there's way more power in that, and you can bring so much more to a person who is expanded and who actually knows themselves as well. So I think that's really awesome you're doing that.
Yeah. Our relationship would have been a whole lot easier if we had. We've been together since we were 21, and we were both fuckboys at 21. I was a fuckboy at 21 for sure.
Yeah.
So we've had to like grow and find ourselves. Well, and I don't want to say we've had to. We've chosen to like find who we are, like while being in relationship, and that's definitely caused a lot of space between us when we had to kind of go off and figure out who we were outside of each other too. So
I love that.
A whole lot of going away and coming back and going away and coming back, and yeah, there's a lot of work in it.
Yeah, go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
No, I just love the fact that you use the word "we chose."
Yeah, I mean, there were times. I mean, we broke up a couple times. Like you know, in your 20s, we were just like figuring things out. But I don't know like where we had maybe shared this before, but we got married a month before we lost our son. So like we've been like talking about this a lot, maybe doing a vow renewal, because pretty much our entire wedding ceremony was centered in like us being parents to this baby. And then when our baby died, we were like, well, what the fuck do we do now? So it was kind of like then we've had to figure out why we're choosing to be married like outside of that. So while being married. So we've kind of done a lot of things like within our relationship that's been really hard to work through. And yeah.
Well, I think that's the benefit of like the fast, right? Like of taking that time. Harry was talking about going and like, you know, being silent for a significant period of time. And, you know, I ended up taking 2.5 years of being celibate, you know, like completely having that path, not doing those things to really understand myself and my feelings and my pieces. And I think Jonathan's in a similar kind of situation too. And there's really a lot of power of taking that time away from the things that are so amazing and feel so amazing that we can often use as distraction, and really sitting with the feelings and understanding what's really underneath it all. So
yeah,
I imagine it's quite difficult to find that space in a relationship or in a marriage to be able to like say, I need to take some time. So having those relational boundaries is essential, it sounds like.
We're so conditioned as humans also to avoid pain and avoid discomfort and avoid vulnerability, that the minute we get to a place of that, we shy away from it. So I think embracing that in yourself or with a partner is just essential to having like a more solidified relationship. So
I think a lot of people also think that once you're in that relationship or you get married, you're kind of done. Like you've hit that point. And they don't realize,
Yeah.
no, that starts off a whole nother phase of it. It's not you get married, you have a kid, you buy a house. It's not a checklist. It's the opening of something very big and beautiful. And we're not married, but we still have that.
Yeah.
Come up.
All right. Does anybody else have anything they would like to share? Anything that maybe came up for you, or any final things that you want to share?
I do want to add that I've been giving a lot of thought to love and relationship lately, and it's kind of like a silly thing that I've imagined in myself, but I have past lives that I can like tap into and recognize, and some of them are feminine and some of them are masculine, and I've been feeling like a marriage within myself, like a union with myself. It's really beautiful.
That's the divine marriage, right? Like the ultimate marrying of the two.
Yeah, it's been a funny journey. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, the beauty of that is like it's a snowflake. It looks totally different for everyone, that balance in the two. It's funny, I was having a conversation on Facebook with somebody. I posted something that, it's not just about women rising, that we all need to rise. Like it's not just about, and it's like the feminine within us all.
Yeah.
And the balanced masculine within us all, the healthy masculine within us all, and then the divine marriage. And there's a lot of people out there that are just promoting that it's just women and it's just this time. And that pendulum swinging of, it's been in like the masculine and the treachery that we've been in, and now we need to swing it far the other way. And I think that being conscious and where we're at is like really understanding that we get to all do this together. We're all in this together, and having like just a more whole approach to that piece.
Yeah.
As long as there is a need for a duality, there's going to be a duality, right? As long as women need men to be a certain way, and then you'll find men that need women to be a certain way. Renee wants to say something. Renee was inspired by something.
Renee was about to fall off her chair. And if there was a skylight, I think part of me would have blasted through it. I did come in really backwards, and I never, ever, ever saw the value of duality or a binary field. And notice I say binary because it sets up for a little bit of a discussion about the digital world and AI. Okay, now I can hear the difference. I create sound CDs, really big, powerful, game-changing energy fields are created. And it sucks having to use digital. So the field is the trinary system. So what if we didn't say that the human experience is locked in to duality and it's not non-duality? What if you could choose to at least enter the third expression, create a trinary field, even if it's the question, what if, and invite the space for what isn't to enter?
You're speaking my language right now.
Cool.
And Renee and I had a beautiful Sunday afternoon where we talked about the whole piece of like even needing to define the masculine and feminine, right? But I think that we're still in that time of helping people identify like the what's within us and the divine marriage, and then the piece of like then what, right? Like then what happens after that piece when we feel it, and then I kind of refer to that as wholeness or embodiment, right? So it's and it's kind of different for everybody, but it's a powerful time to be a human, that's for sure. Yeah. All right, well, I really
Thank you all, by the way, for creating this space for this beautiful broadband discussion.
For sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to say thank you also, and it was a pleasure to meet all of you, the ones that I hadn't seen before or heard from. And this gives me more hope than I already had for humanity, because this is what it's all about. So thank you.
I love that.
And I will say I love you. I'm attached to that word right now, and I do love you guys. So whatever that means for you or for me right now.
well, and I think that that's the beauty of like you're really getting vulnerable and comfortable with expression. So like
Yes.
I very much see you and I very much understand like the level of what that means coming from you. So like I think like there's no one way with any of this. Like
Well,
it's we
thank you.
all can be where we're at.
Thank you.
I love you, beautiful souls, expanded humans. Thank you so much for making this call so special and for bringing all your magic and your wisdom to people. I really hope that, you know, the people that get to watch this and, you know, maybe don't have this in their own lives or are wanting or craving this in their own lives are, you know, finding more hope or finding more inspiration and sharing and being vulnerable. So thank you for going and creating more of a ripple out there and just being the expanded humans that you are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.